let's like jump right into the topic of making your book go viral on TikTok. Because you mentioned one type of content. What is like the type of content that does
Okay.
get it
So
seen?
funnily enough, I have been like to give a little bit of a context of myself, writing online for a very, very long time. I used to write a lot in the Wattpad. And I started like marketing my Wattpad stories for my Spanish speaking audience because I wrote in Spanish most of my life. I'm just starting in English. And it was a little bit easier, I think, back then to kind of break into that community because I would take some of the things that people were doing in English and I would translate it into Spanish and then they were still new.
Mm.
And that is where, like, if you go to my Instagram and you see, like, oh shit, she has 10,000 followers, that is where that happened because it was this very new thing.
Okay.
And in English, it's a little bit more different because, like, more people are doing this, like, lip syncing or like doing trends and stuff
Right.
where I'm putting like the line into what makes it different on my end is that I am putting things that are relevant like from Glowrot specifically right now in like the text on the screen or stuff like that. The majority of the
Okay.
people that I have seen using TikTok to actually market their books, um, I wanted to say are a little bit more formulaic, but not as an insult, just more like as a fact of like they're following certain steps, which is the whole idea of like making like little videos that have like the content pull of your book and quotes and things that are very good out of context that will attract attention of people. And I have seen that that works very well for stories that have spicy content, dark romance stories or romance or stuff like that. It has been very challenging to do that with Glowrot and in general the stuff that I write about because a lot of the things for this book are very contextualized and you have to follow the
Mm.
mental spiral of the main characters for certain things that are very hitting within the novel to hit you if you have like completely out of context on it. So the way that like in general like short videos have worked for me have been talking about my experience writing the book. One of them that did pretty good was just I used to, I don't know if my therapist would let me call it a hallucination, but he's not here. I used to see this random shadowy guy creature thing when I was growing up. And to the point that I was like, it's materialized literally in front of me. I will just start addressing this thing. For most of my life, a lot of Glowrot is based on my personal experiences. And I put that little shadowy creature situation on the book. And
Mm.
it was just a TikTok of I don't remember what trending sound that was basically the idea of like people made me believe I was crazy, just saying I did this, and then I realized that other people have had these experiences, and I thought I was the only one, and people really resonated with that, and then they were like, "Oh wait, you wrote a book about it?" So
Uh,
that's kind of like the way that I also like because I really get bored if I have to put like 500 images with quotes and just try to mass schedule them. It tried before, burned me out. My brain just doesn't match very well with that type of content.
yeah, and really like what you're like experiencing is the readers and audiences like really looking to connect with you as a person, and then
Yeah,
like
and I love
this,
that.
yeah, but the secondary thing is like the book sale. So once they connect with you, and it seems like readers and audiences like online and in bookstores are really looking to have more of like a personal relationship with the author,
Yeah,
maybe.
100%. And I like that because honestly, like everyone can write for a very different reason. The reason why I write specifically is because I want to move people, and I put it way better. Like I actually wrote down the little afterword here. I don't remember the words I used. They were great. It took me a while to actually come up with the right words, but basically, like I don't care if you hate it.
Yeah.
because like hating it means that it made you feel something so strong about it that's okay with me. Just don't be indifferent. Like the worst thing that could happen to me is that someone reads this and they're like and they continue with their life. That would actually destroy me.
Oh.
On the
Well,
floor crying for like a week.
no. Well, we might not get every reader, but
Yeah, just
the
don't
ones
tell. If
that
you are that reader, just do not tell me.
that's awesome. I love it. Well, let me do a little introduction.
Yes, I
So,
talk a lot. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. I love it. I talk a lot too.
Oh yeah.
That's my thing. This is my thing. So, welcome everyone back to the Four Elements Press LGBTQ Authors Series. Today we are talking with Beatrice Lebrun, and we're going to be speaking about their novel Glowrot and about their experiences online marketing and publishing. Welcome in, Beatrice. How are you?
Oh, I'm so excited that you said Lebrun because everyone just says LeBron or tried to think that it's like LeBron James. And it's like, no, I was a stupid child that took a French last name and pronounces it like a Hispanic person. Let me be. Ah,
It's
that, my
great.
heart. Thank you so much. I feel seen.
Good. That's why we're here today.
Hell yeah. So yeah, no, I'm just very excited. I love talking about this thing because it's very emotionally connected to me, and I it's catharsis. Even after writing it, I realized that I can still benefit from like the emotional energy release just by speaking about this experience. So this means a lot,
Mm.
also on a personal level.
Yeah, and that's an interesting connection. And yeah, it goes to show like when you write something with a purpose behind it and with like an authentic message that you strategically want to resonate with a reader, it's going to be something that you can speak about and connect with readers on, rather than maybe setting like a plot line and really
Yeah,
not
and
having a purpose behind it.
exactly.
So tell us a little bit about the purpose and inspiration behind Glowrot, because it's a very like iconic cover and it's great visually.
Thank you. Well, first, to talk about like what's inside the book, I'll put it here because the cover is glorious. I did like 99% of the book. The only part of the book that I didn't do was editing it because obviously I needed a professional editor, but I happen to be a professional cover designer, so it is professionally made just by me.
Oh my God. Wow.
I also did the internal layout, which I'm very proud of because it's weird as fuck, and I wanted it to be weird as fuck. And if it wasn't weird, it wasn't gonna be it.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that it's heavily based in my personal experience, and I think people don't realize how heavily based it is. I am an immigrant. I'm from Venezuela, and I moved to the US almost 10 years ago, which is very scary. So I live here for my entire adult life, and I lived in a bubble of, yes, you are privileged with being surrounded by people that care about your well-being. You are privileged that you have like a small group of friends that like wouldn't mean harm to you. You know, like those little kinds of things in which we think that the bad things that are happening outside wouldn't ever touch us.
Yeah.
And I lived like I moved here, I didn't know anyone and everything, and I felt very lost. It was, I think, the whole idea that probably every single immigrant that comes to this country like sees that it's like the American dream is not fucking real, and then it's like, well, fuck you, you're going to have to struggle. It's still a better quality of life that I would have had in Venezuela because I can eat here. The reason why I left was because my parents weren't eating, so I could eat. I was like, fuck that shit. I want them to survive. And also like dictatorship in general. And so, well, I couldn't go to college because I couldn't afford it anymore in Venezuela because I was going to a private visual communication school. And in here, I couldn't go to college because even to this day, they would still charge me out of state, even though I've been living here for like 9 years because of my immigration status. because it's still pending. I know it's so fucking stupid. So I got stuck in retail jobs or in like places and doing things that weren't necessarily what my passion was, and it drained my life motivation. I It's so close to my personal experience that the entirety of the book is basically in Miami because I used to live in
Mhm.
Miami. Bo works and lives at a hotel, which is modeled precisely after a hotel that I used to rent an apartment on. And a lot of the people that worked at that hotel lived there, and that's where I took the inspiration from. And all of the things that happened to her are based on the way that I was trying to fill up my life, which was this very ephemeral, little small instant gratification moments. I used to work at a tattoo shop for a while, and it was almost like required to go clubbing every single week. Like they wouldn't say it, but they would like shun you if you didn't go with them. Because also it was like you have to go clubbing with your bosses. Very safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was just kind of like I slowly started depending more and more on these experiences that in the end they weren't feeling me, but at the time it felt good.
Right.
And I got put at risk in multiple of those situations. And I saw my friends putting at risk. Like more than once, I had to physically grab one of my friends to like take her away from another person, like things like that. And all of that was mixed with the whole idea of just feeling lost and feeling very out of purpose with life. And I got very hyper fixated in certain things that would fill me or like family finally make me feel like I'm living again. And for Bo particularly, I'm also very obsessed with dreams. For Bo particularly, she starts going to this place and going to these parties and seeing this one person, and that person has a rabbit tattooed on their back, and it's like, wow, this person like sometimes Bo remembers a little bit, sometimes doesn't remember at all. The W, which is like the shadowy being thing, tells her, yeah, you didn't do anything last night, I don't know what you're talking about. Until But she starts becoming more and more obsessed with finding out what the fuck happened, if it was her dream or what, and then she starts seeing this person in the hotel where she's working. And
Mm.
it's like this extreme hyper fixation that if I get to you, my entire life will be resolved. And she puts basically her entire well-being on the concept of finally getting to that white rabbit and finally being together, and this delusion of like we were meant to be because they love me type shit. And that is very much the mental state that I was in, to the point that like I would even behave like that with people that had harmed me, because it
Mm.
was the whole idea of like, no, it was my fault, or I can do different, or this was a one time kind of thing. And I do believe that my life didn't end up being the like downward spiral that happens in Glowrot because of luck mostly, and a couple of people that I surrounded myself with that were like, hey, let's wake up from this, you shouldn't be doing this, let's do something different. So it's like a cautionary tale, to be honest, a very dark, very graphic cautionary tale of like, hey, the world's shitty, navigating it is fucking hard, but trying to fill your life with these things is not going to make it easier. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that description and just the connection you that it that you share with the work, and also the things that you learned kind of throughout these processes. And it's so timely, I think, because in like the age of like social media and the age of like becoming a influencer, and a lot of these influencers are just filling a roster, like doing check boxes, like,
Yeah.
okay, did this, did this, did this, did this. Now I need to do this. To have something that to have the experiences to have learned from, and then to also write about and share with others to kind of show like, hey, like this is like life in 2025. you know?
Yeah, 100%.
And sometimes it does feel like you mention it as a twisted version of Alice in Wonderland. Like it feels like that
Yeah,
with the internet and with these portrayals of reality that aren't true. And like the chasing of that. How do you kind of so this shows like the downward spiral. How do you kind of contrast I guess the turning point between yourself and the character?
it is hard. And I think it took the actual big developmental edit that I did after the story was written to be able to see it as itself instead of just an extension of myself, which I still considering it, but it can stand by itself too. I wrote it originally. The first draft was actually in Wattpad. It was in Spanish. The title in Spanish was Nexo, and it was, I think, 20, I want to say 2020 or 2021. I had written it originally for the Waddies Awards that they had in Wattpad, and it didn't win, whatever. Still upset about that, but it's okay. Um, and I think it still functioned more as like just almost like a diary. And I revisited over the years a couple of times, but this very, very big edit was when I first translated the whole thing. And then while I was translating, I was taking notes on actual, like objective, like plot points, things that I needed to explain more. I work at Storyforge, which is a writing platform, and it's very based on feedback. And I put that first like translated draft on Storyforge as well. And I got a lot of feedback from readers saying, "Hey, I don't understand this part very well." One of them that I thought was great because I never would have caught it was like, oh, every single chapter of the last chapters of when Bo goes to this Wonderland place start the same way. And I was like, shit, that's making it monotonous. So it really helped
Mhm.
me separate from how I personally felt about it and make it a story. Definitely helped to also flesh out more of the rest of the characters instead of just focusing too much on Bo. I love all of the characters, they're all my babies, but I think besides Nick, which is the Mad Hatter, basically her sidekick for half of the book, they were a little bit too one dimensional. And sitting down and asking myself, what is Alexia's personality? What are the things that Nova would do if she was in this scene and it wasn't just a scene with just Bo? Little things like that help me actually world build in a way that it felt like a more contained world, which also, funnily enough, the book itself wasn't originally planned as an Alice in Wonderland retelling. And I only considered it afterwards because people would
Mhm.
message me and be like, this feels like Alice in Wonderland. And I was like, am I accidentally making a Wonderland? And when I revisited it, I started seeing all of the points where it connected. I've been obsessed with Alice in Wonderland since I was a baby. I had
Oh.
like little my mom. I think I have like little figurines when I was a baby of my mom putting Alice in Wonderland and fairies because my first name is Ada, which is a fairy in Spanish, and fairies, and it was always Alice in Wonderland and fairies. And I would write down parts of the story that would mimic the book or be like, you know what? I kind of want to add a trial. I feel like it makes sense. I kind of want to add the walrus and the carpenter. Who can be the walrus? And that also helped me kind of like make it its own story in a way that connected more, like intermingled with itself way better. And now it has a shit ton of Wonderland references that like were almost like meant to be. Bo was always
Oh,
meant to be
wow.
Alice. Her chasing someone for so long, like it was almost obvious that that had to be the white rabbit. And that happened with every character. I had twins, like it was there, I didn't see it. And it eventually, like the story started growing roots.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, because you wrote it in Spanish first,
Yeah.
primarily. What was the course of time that you were like from like I guess starting to I guess book publication, yeah.
Yeah. I think in total, when like from when I actually sat down and started doing everything, probably less than a year.
Oh,
I have this thing
that's
of
fast.
my wonderfully autistic brain and ADHD brain that if I work in a project for too long, I completely drop it. I get bored,
Yeah.
and I made a list. I was like, I want to publish something. I want to self-publish.
Hmm.
I have gone through extremely awful experiences within the traditional publishing industry to the point that two of them gave me, no, I think all of them gave me PTSD. And that's something that I've also had to dissect a lot in therapy and stuff. So I was very committed to self publishing. I was like, that's it. I think that other route is not for me. I have my best friend is a Penguin Random House published off. Like, like that worked for her, definitely not for me. Uh, and I made a list of all of the projects that I had, both created and in my brain, because I also wanted to do it in English. Part of this whole trauma that I had with the traditional publishing industry was within. It was tangentially connected to the community that I had in that moment that was Spanish speaking, that they weren't necessarily the reason for it, but going back to them after all this trauma happened was too painful for me. Even if they
Yeah.
were like, hey, we'll be here and we'll support you. And they still say that whenever I translate to Spanish and I'm ready, they'll support me. A little bit iffy to go back. Made a list. And then every single time that Nexo came up, I would choose it to the point that I was like, this is ridiculous. I need this story. I needed
Yeah.
it when I wrote it and I need it now. And I started translating it. And the more that I translated it, the more desperate I became with finishing it, because it felt like if I didn't do it that moment, I would never do it. Started very slowly, and I think it really probably around like October last year, and it really ramped up in January. To From January to February, I for the first time in forever, I actually set myself schedules, like an actual, like very demanding job. Schedules of like, I feel like I probably still have my little here of like how many chapters I do each day.
Oh,
Why,
wow.
what I like, stuff like that. Like, again, very, very demand. See, I did here. So Saturday, this is March 1st. I did chapter 19 and 20. I think this was after the translation. It was like the actual rewritten. In the 21st,
Oh,
I wanted to also be mindful of my brain. So they are like these little tabs that actually is what I use to mark my books. So if I
okay.
can't complete it, I would put it in like the next day and stuff.
Right.
So basically, yeah, translation probably January and February. I think I had started before, but it was like a very iffy, like 1 week, maybe I would do one chapter, stuff like that. And then after I finished in March, I had already like spoken to my editor, and I was like, hey, I want to give you this, blah, blah, blah. I want to have it finished by this time. And I told her I I need it out. Like if it's not out, I don't know what I do. I feel like I'm going to die if this
Yeah.
is not out soon. I wanted to have it out in May, and then it didn't happen. And it clicked with me that it had to be out in June because it's Pride Month. It had to be out in Pride Month. And if June passed and the book wasn't out, it was going to be a this shit's not meant to be out. Super drastic.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I work on impulse a lot and I work on extremes, and this book is a lot of extremes mirrored to each other, but I've learned that that's just what works for me. So when the editor was editing it, I started working on everything, like the cover, learning how to do the internal layout for a book because I had only used InDesign and everything for doing like school projects and doing magazines. And actually, I had more experience designing for interactive PDFs and web than
Mm.
actual like physical books. And I bought a course and I did the course while the editor was editing it. And I wrote a short story that was a companion for this because I read somewhere that you had to have a reader magnet and I just wanted an excuse to write something again. And I edited that and then June 11th the book was given birth.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It came out great. How did you have an idea for the cover, like kind of all throughout, or as you were like figuring out the Alice in Wonderland connection, or?
Do I have my iPad? I have my iPad. I had an idea that was a bit too ambitious for the medium that I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want an illustrator cover because my style of illustration would have make it look like YA. And I wanted to be very, very clear that this was an adult book. Like, please, like, do not even approach this if you're like younger than like 21, like something like that. So I wanted to be very careful with that. And I wanted originally like having Bo falling like Alice, but like a perspective shot, falling down the rabbit hole, but instead of the rabbit hole, is the hallway of the hotel where everything happens.
Mm.
And then I was like, okay, maybe it's not a perspective shot. Maybe she's running towards it. And all of the things that this is like a shitty mock-up that I did with like stock images.
Oh, wow.
Like stuff like that cool, but it really wasn't the final result of what I was looking for. I I was trying other things like she has like this like conspiracy board in like her walls because she goes like crazy and she's like, what is the mystery and the puzzle pieces and stuff. So it's like something like this.
Yeah.
Nothing clicked. My boyfriend and I went to Barnes and Noble one time, and I was very upset because all of the covers looked very generic. Like all of the covers from for horror specifically, like this looked the same, very like plain image, and then like huge text and like the author, and that's it. And again, I have a visual communication background, and for me, I wanted the image to communicate the book, not just be pretty. And a lot of this tries, I even did one with like one of my pictures that I was just screaming, and people were like, wow, I would totally buy that. But I was like, yeah, but this is not speaking to me. This is like a poster. It doesn't say anything about it.
Mm.
And it was actually my boyfriend who had the idea. He was like, hey, you like manipulating like photos. What if like, and I think I had mentioned like I have a photo and I cut it in the middle and do something. He's like, what if there's like something dripping out of someone? And he made a little sketch and immediately it clicked. And I pretty sure I have that sketch still. I put in my Substack too, that it was like this just like someone that had the little droopy thingies on their eyes and then the bunny ears. And I was like, that's it. And my brain immediately started trying to figure out what elements to add. And I think the last things that I added were the hands right here
Oh, yeah.
and the hands right here.
Okay.
So this is also very meaningful once you have read it because this is not the main character. This is the main character. This is the
Okay.
white rabbit. And a very important plot point. It's Alice in Wonderland, so it's obviously a lot about identity. A very important part of the book is that the white rabbit character, which their actual name is Ray, is constantly like their voice is constantly almost stolen from them. We only see from their perspective on the chapter 0, and then we just see them through the lens that Bo sees them in. And like there's a point in which like someone shakes Bo and it's like, hey, you're not talking about like an inanimate object, you're talking about a real person, like stop imposing your views and your stereotypes and whatever you want on them, you haven't even asked them how they feel about it. You haven't even asked them if they actually like you, like all of those things. So it's a way, I'm getting like so emotional. It's a way for like them to kind of reclaim, like, yes, this book is about them as much as it's about her. And
Right.
it's also a non-binary character, and it's also like through the book, Bo does a lot of shit that is very, very fucked up. And I made it very, very clear. And there's definite consequences to that shit because I also wanted to make that clear. And some of the things that Bo does are, again, like very, very harmful to Ray, including things like finding out their pre-transition, like photos and everything, and just being like, I'm so glad that now they are finally themselves with me. It's like, no, bitch, you don't get to decide that shit. That's disgusting. Block your phone. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Or completely ignoring race, also like suffering like through some issues by themselves, completely ignoring those red flags consciously because they don't exist within the idea that she had created in her brain about them. So yeah, pretty happy about it. And then in the back, there's a lot of caterpillars
Ah,
because caterpillars, you know, the caterpillar are also important in the story. So
yeah.
yeah, this is special before you read it, but then after you read it, if you start looking at it, you're like, oh fuck, this is like actually more charged with meaning.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
yeah,
like how you talk about how Bo like kind of superimposes her beliefs and that like completely like subjectifies their
yeah,
reality and like to the point where they kind of get lost in it. And like
that is also based from personal experiences. I just happen to be a more regulated person now than many years ago.
yeah, but that comes from also like because kind of getting wrapped up and getting so attached to like your own perspective. It really is an issue in the world today where
Yeah,
people kind of feel entitled to um like push beliefs on other people
so true.
in ways that are, maybe they don't realize they're, being maybe discriminatory. But that just also speaks to the need for books like this and conversations like this because we need to like have our own kind of perspectives called out when we're kind of engaged in a warped view of reality. But also, other people might not have ever read that anything that kind of contradicts their reality too. So, so thank you for taking on this challenge.
Yeah, it was a lot, but it was very rewarding.
How do you because you mention Bo is bisexual Latina, um, with dissociation. How do you kind of
She's like
bring
gay for real.
in and kind of like focus on and also kind of have these changes in character in all these different elements?
Well, I think Bo was like the character that I struggle with the least, just because of like how much there is like of like the essence of who I am in Bo. I wanted to make sure though that I was showing that in a way that people that obviously don't know me would understand. And I, first of all, with like the whole, I think both like bisexual identity and also being Latina, I have seen that portrayed in a fiction in ways that I personally don't like or identify with as a bisexual Latina, which is like it feels forced.
Hmm.
So for me, it was, I don't even think I actually say that Bo is from Venezuela, but she uses like she curses in Spanish because that's what I do. If I get upset, I fucking going to curse in Spanish. Or like she, the more mentally unstable she is, the more words in English she forgets. So little
Hmm.
things like that. And like the curses, for example, are very, very, very like typical for like Venezuela. Like I don't think I have probably had any contact with anyone from another country in Latin America that say coño de la madre in a way that we see it. We say it so much constantly all the time. Very similarly, that I never say that Nick is from Puerto Rico, but he always refers to Bo like Nena, and he has like a lot of these little things that you're like, yeah, he has this flow on him that is very characteristic. And by being by, well, Alexia is the security guard, which is also the Queen of Hearts in the book, and she's Bo's ex-girlfriend, and she's
Mm.
having this like friends with benefits situation with one of her co-workers who is a guy that I hate, who is a March Hare. So I was able to kind of like sprinkle all of these things by just her existing in her life, but making sure that people understand that this existence is linked to this particular identity from her. And then just like her delusions, and she is very she's very neurodivergent coded in like a more unstable way. I have like I think this dissociation aspect of it. I have another character who is Nova, which is the main character of this like side story, the short story that I made, which is called Sugar Long. That is very, very like ADHD specific, like overstimulation prone person coded, that is like very different from Bo's brain. That I just took basically what my brain is right now, and then boys like what my brain was back then. So by
Mm.
showing the way that they just exist within their environment, and making sure that things happen in that environment that help them just react to them in a way that would be normal. I like to say that I was able to like show all of these very particular characteristics, or like all of these characters in a way that didn't feel like hola mi amigo, mucho gusto type shit, because I fucking hate that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like an interesting like needle to thread when you're, focused on continuing the story and having everything be, building towards something, but also to kind of give it that like reflection that makes it clear to the reader, like, hey, like, um, this character's struggling right now,
Yeah.
and it might be beyond their control at this moment, and maybe what they're maybe what they're fighting for right now isn't that solution, but how do you kind of, because you mentioned this is kind of the downward spiral, how do you kind of give that resolution to the reader of kind of like, okay, this character is like different now at the end, or
Well, I had a couple of people that legit they still love me, but they hate me a little bit just because of that. That I guess the resolution of the story in general, and it is hard. It is very challenging. Um, I am a firm believer, because I guess I'm a decent person, that actions have to have consequences. And that not because you're a victim, you're exempt from like being a perpetrator in someone else's life. And that is something that I have dealt with personally, like with people that try to shield like their own things that they have gone through that have been fucked up, and use it as an excuse to like be fucked up to other people. So with Bo specifically, it was a little bit challenging because it was like acknowledging the fact that she was going through stuff that she was completely out of control of, and like she was being a victim. For example, like this friends with benefits situation that she had with this guy. Like the guy was considerably younger than her. Like she could have been like in a position of power because it was at work and people never took the guy seriously, but it was a power struggle in which he was like emotionally abusing her. which that happened to me. I was emotionally abused by someone that was like 3 years younger than me, and people wouldn't take it seriously because I was the older person. And like those things, and just generally like the sprinkle things of like she's clearly like doesn't really want to continue living, and there's a reflection in the beginning of the story saying like, I am not going to do anything, but I very consciously do not look like to the street when I'm going to cross it. I'm not doing anything, but I am dressing very provocatively to go do my laundry at 10 p.m. Like, like those little things of like that are not okay, but also like doing the shit, like putting like Ray on harm's way, it completely erasing their whole identity, putting even like other people in harm's way, like doing things like that, like you are still hurting someone even if you're going through stuff. And she has multiple opportunities in which like people sit down and they're like, hey, I'm worried about you, let's do something about it, and she rejects that.
Mm.
So I mean, there's only so much that can possibly be done when you're not really ready to actually face whatever you're doing, and there are consequences for that, and it sucks, but like that's kind of what fiction has to show us sometimes. I personally didn't grow up reading a lot of things that had happy endings, but
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a story that would be done justice if it gets like wrapped with tied like with a perfect bow. There's a lot of things that are left to the reader's like interpretation to try to figure out what happened. And not only with Bo in general, but like with multiple plot points that are open on it, that I had to make a list and decide what I wanted to like have open while still making it satisfying for the reader. And the things that I close are the things that I believe people would really want to know what happened. Things like there's this question that is asked from the very beginning, and it's probably one of the biggest questions. At least let me know how people reacted to this thing. So it was like kind of like choosing, I guess, how I wanted to interact with all of these multiple plot threads and everything, how the actual characters were going to react to this, and see if I wanted to show the characters reacting to this or just like the ending of how that was, but also treating it as real life, which is some things are left unopen, or and some things are not your story to tell. There's a few things that you glance, take like a little through a keyhole, like a little view on someone else's story, but you don't know what happens
Mhm.
next because that is not you. They are the main character of their own thing, and I don't know. If you want to know what happens, I guess ask me and I'll write it, right? But
Right, but
yeah,
that goes to like the
that's life.
artistic, yeah, the life,
Yes.
but the art too, because
Yeah.
the best art, you're still thinking about it like hours after you've seen it. And the in the same way, the best books are the books that you are still thinking about maybe months after you read them. And to have maybe an ambiguous ending or one that the reader can kind of put um, in their own mind, I think it's powerful.
Thank you.
And the book as an artistic expression, really, um, it warrants, I think, that kind of ending too.
Yeah. It was meant to be. I know people, and it's like when it was in Spanish that like some people were just rooting for very specific things to happen, and like I have a voice message that was like, "I hate you, bitch! What the fuck?" And it's like, "I love you too, bye bye." But that's life. Life is not always fair, but hopefully, seeing the unfairness on it can kind of like like click a light bulb. Even when I wrote this for the first time, there were a lot of things that I put in the book that I didn't realize were like not fair even to the main character.